Hello and welcome to another edition of Ballin with Roy and Edwyn. I am Roy S. Johnson, longtime sports writer, current columnist, and this is my son Edwyn, who is knowledgeable and passionate and steeped in the world of sports. And we kind of bring a little intergenerational debate and buzz to our discussion. How you doing, Edwyn?
I'm good. How are you, Daddy?
Good. I mean, this is spring when sports is typically kind of slows down a bit, but there's so much going on, so much to talk about, some on the field, some off the field, some coaches, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to tie a bow on the NFL draft, just looking at a few winners and losers. You know, it's always tough to evaluate drafts right away. Everybody wants to do that, but you know, it takes years to really determine whether a draft was successful, particularly when there are trades involved and draft picks, and even with picks, you know, you're talking about young players, many of whom will play right away, but some won't. So, but looking back at this draft, the 2022 draft, what are some of the things that stand out for you in terms of winners and losers?
Well, my team, the Baltimore Ravens, definitely were winners in the draft in every round, especially the first round. I do believe Philly definitely won the draft too, not just off of drafting Jordan Davis out of Georgia, but also acquiring A.J. Brown too, another big weapon for Jalen. So they won it too. The Giants won with Kayvon Thibodeau, and then my favorite player in the draft also with I'm sorry, and I'm trying to remember names, but
Evan Neal.
Evan Neal, yes, correct.
Yep.
So they definitely won it too, and again, they're going to need those draft picks, especially him, to protect Daniel Jones. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. But that's good. So you like the Giants too. We both like the Giants. We used to live in New York, and I used to go to some Giants games. Went to a couple of Jets games, but I think both of those teams won in this draft. You mentioned why the Giants did well. You know, they got some protection both for their quarterback, but they also got some dynamic fire on the edge with Thibodeau. I mean, he kind of fell a little bit, but people thought he would be 1 or 2, but he fell maybe right where he needed.
He went 5.
Yeah, he went 5, right? People thought he would go
5.
higher.
Evan Neal went down a little bit. Evan Neal was supposed to go top 5 too, but he went number 7.
Yeah, and you never know why those kind of things happen, and you know, some teams will be sorry years from now. But I think both of those players are going to give the Giants probably what they needed, certainly at those positions. But I also like what the Jets did. Ahmad Gardner at cornerback at number 4, wide receiver Drake London from USC. They also got an edge rusher with Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. So I think that the Jets did well too.
They did. The Lions drafted Jameson Williams, who was the best receiver in the draft, in my opinion. Alabama, they got him as well too. And get a lot of teams, you know, they did their trades to get certain move up in the draft to get certain picks too, which Baltimore has done a couple of times in the past also. So I definitely saw a lot of good picks. And again, Jacksonville had a great pick too. I was very, excited at that because again, with Hutchinson, he is a good player. I thought he was a little bit overrated, but again, him going to, that was fair. I thought maybe 2 other players could have gone before him.
Okay. And I agree with you about the Eagles and your team, the Ravens, both did well. I also think the Steelers did pretty well too. It remains to be seen, but I think the Steelers made some savvy picks, and we'll certainly see how they pay off in the near future. In terms of losers, did Chicago do anything to help Justin Fields? I mean, here's a guy who we think has talent, but it's just really hard to tell because they got no protection for him. And I don't know what the Texans were doing at all. I mean, they picked Derek Stingley, cornerback from LSU, at number 3. So I'm not sure what the Texans were doing with that pick that high, and I don't think Chicago helped themselves either. I could totally be wrong, but probably not.
Not with Chicago. No, not with Chicago, because they don't have an offensive line to protect Justin Fields. That's what, and I would say the first 3 to 4 rounds, they needed to go offensive line. They didn't need to go any receiver. They don't need a receiver. They didn't need a tight end, running back, or anything on the defense, even though they lost Khalil Mack, yes, but they didn't need anything on the defensive side. It needed to be straight up linemen. So if they did not go that route, it was a fail. They definitely failed.
Cool.
And I think Houston did too. I think Houston failed also on top of that.
Okay. All right. So we shall see. Hopefully we're wrong about some of the teams that didn't do well, and we're right about the teams that we thought we did do well. All right, let's move on to baseball. And the first thing I want to do is congratulate Dusty Baker, longtime manager, and certainly a someone who should be recognized as one of the best of all time. Congratulations, the first black manager to win 2,000 baseball games, which puts him number 6 all time. I mean, so it's not just about him being an African-American manager. It's about him being a great manager, and it's about time that Dusty Baker got that recognition. Of course, the first black manager in Major League Baseball was Frank Robinson, and Frank finished with over 1,000 wins. And now all Dusty has to do is win a World Series. He's got some good teams. He just hasn't yet won a World Series. There have been 2 black coaches to win World Series. The first was Cito Gaston. He did it with Toronto in 92 and 93. And then last season, Dave Roberts of the Los Angeles Dodgers became the second African-American manager to win the World Series. It was 1972 when Jackie Robinson called out Major League Baseball during Game 2 of the World Series for its lack of black coaches. Since then, 16 black men have been hired as managers, 27 jobs. They were all filling those, just 27 jobs. And over that period, though, 224 men were hired to fill 470 openings in baseball, and only 16 of those were African American. So while baseball has made some progress, it's still, like the NFL, has a long, long way to go in order to try to achieve diversity, not just in the coaching box, but also, as people have written about for many years, baseball is losing African American players. I know, you played a little baseball growing up, but it wasn't a sport that caught your fancy. I mean, again, the last player I think that we've talked about this weeks ago that you really embraced was Ken Griffey Jr. So do you think it's the lack of black stars that is causing players or young people like you to not follow baseball, or is it just boring?
It's a combination of all. Yeah, it is boring. And the reason why I stopped playing it, and again, I stopped playing it at a young age, it's extremely hard to try to hit a ball and then try even to catch a long ball too. That is hard. It's harder than trying to tackle somebody. It is harder than trying to shoot free throws. So that's a part of it too. But also the viewers too, a lot of black viewers, that's declining also on top of that. And again, when you have an athlete like Ken Griffey Jr. retire, and then you have A-Rod, Derek Jeter, Frank Thomas, Big Papi, all of those guys. And yes, you had Matsui, some of the foreign players as well in there. They do make it exciting. But yes, and again, when you talk about Jackie Robinson too, yes, the sport of baseball is equivalent to us. It is. But again, like myself, I haven't watched baseball probably since 8th grade maybe. So
yeah, that's a shame. I mean, baseball used to be Black America's sport, primarily because of Jackie Robinson. My parents grew up Dodgers fans. I grew up St. Louis Cardinals fans and played baseball up until till I got to Stanford. Played for a little bit at Stanford. So, but in terms of your generation, it just has not resonated. Baseball is now trying to fix some of that by making games faster. They may put a clock between pitches, which would be pretty cool just to keep things moving. So they've got to do something. There's some dynamic young players and there's some great plays being made. They need to put together some highlights and push them out to the phones to show some of the great athletic plays that are made every day. So baseball's been cleaning itself when it comes to passing on passion to the next generation. If they don't do something pretty soon, it's going to become just a niche sport, which is unfortunate because, as you mentioned, baseball is not easy to achieve the things that they do. It's one of the only sports, and I always tell people that you can fail 7 out of 10 times in baseball and still make the Hall of Fame. That's how hard it is to hit a baseball, that the top players really only do it 30% of the time. But congratulations again to Dusty Baker. And for us, it made me think about, man, who's on my Mount Rushmore of coaches, black coaches, which is pretty tough because there's been a lot of great black coaches over the era. And as we always do here on Ballin, we're going to make it a generational thing. Edwyn, who's on your Mount Rushmore for coaches that you saw perform during your lifetime, your generational Mount Rushmore of coaches?
Number 1, I'm going Doc Rivers. Again, I watched Boston win the championship in 2008. Number 2, I'm going with Tony Dungy, and again, he was first black coach to win a Super Bowl. Now, I wasn't quite into football, yet alone really sports. I was into basketball at that time, but I'm still going to go with Tony Dungy. Number 3, I'm going with John Thompson. And again, John Thompson coached. I didn't watch him coach because I was a baby pretty much when he had coached, and then he ended up retiring from coaching Georgetown in '99. But his influence on his players, Patrick Ewing and Allen Iverson, being a father figure, saving Allen Iverson, changing his life, and again, other players he coached, like Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning. So I definitely have been influenced by him also. Now, I should say Mike Tomlin, again, because he is a Super Bowl winning coach with the Steelers, and his style of coaching is very exciting because a lot of times for so many last 7 years, he goes for it instead of hits the field goal. He's very exciting, both offense and defense. But I think I was a little bit more influenced, honestly, by Herm Edwards.
Okay.
Again, he coached 10 years in the NFL. He did coach the Jets too. I know he had some success in playoffs, won some playoff games, also left the game too for different reasons too. I just like the way that he talks to people, his players. It motivates you. It gets you the way that he talks to. Also, I've always loved watching him, on ESPN before he ended up coaching Arizona State. So I would have to go with him as the 4th.
Okay. So your 4 are Doc Rivers, John Thompson. You said Herm Edwards is slots in at number 4. And who's the other one that I missed?
I'm Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy. That's great. That's a good Mount Rushmore for someone of your age in your mid 20s. All right, so I get to go a little bit further back, right? I get to go a little bit into the black and white images, into the deep images. So Mount Rushmore is going to start with Eddie Robinson, the legendary Grambling coach, who finished with 408 wins. He in '85 he became the winningest coach in college football history, surpassing Bear Bryant here in Alabama. He's now number 3 on the list, so he's going to be on my Mount Rushmore. We both agree about John Thompson. You really talked about his influence on young men. He really elevated men that many people would give up on. He also spoke out for the plight of black athletes at a time when there were efforts to try to diminish some of their opportunities in college sports. So he took some hits sometimes for what he did. You got to love the towel over his shoulder and the fact that he won championships as well. He finished with 506 wins. I'm also going to add John Chaney onto mine. John Chaney was a legendary coach at Chaney State, but mostly at Temple. Finished with 734 wins. He would almost kind of be a protege of John Thompson. He also did tremendous things for young black men coming out of Philadelphia, gave them opportunities and coached them to the point of being great young men. And also he had some great teams at Temple. He put Temple on the map for college basketball, and it really hasn't been the same since he left. And I got to add Dusty Baker. I mean, again, if you're what he's done in Major League Baseball, building on the legend of Frank Robinson, Cito Gaston, and other black coaches. I mean, he is an inspiration for young African-American managers, and certainly someone who, again, deserves all the due of being one of the great managers of all time, not just a great black manager. You really, really want to see him win a World Series ring in order to put a cap on that. So my Mount Rushmore: Eddie Robinson, John Thompson, John Chaney, and Dusty Baker. And like you, I had a tough time leaving some folks off. It was tough to leave off Frank Robinson. It was tough to leave off Clarence Big House Gaines. And I don't even know if you ever heard of Clarence Big House, but he had 824 wins at Winston-Salem State. Again, was another shaper of young men. John McClendon, another legendary African-American basketball coach who coached at Cleveland State, had almost 500 wins, 496 before he retired. But the really tough one for me to leave off was Lenny Wilkens. Lenny Wilkens was a great player, all-star, Hall of Famer, but also became a Hall of Fame coach. Took the Seattle Supersonics to the NBA Finals back-to-back in 78 and 79, won the title in 79, finished with 1,332 wins, and was Coach of the Year in 94. So he was a quiet leader on the court when he was a player, certainly a quiet leader as a coach. So there's really has been just a plethora of talented, amazing African-American coaches. So it really makes it tough. We need a couple of Mount Rushmores for both of us to really give them all their due. All right, we can't go without talking about the NBA playoffs. I mean, the second round is kind of off to an interesting start. So let's talk about the Heat and Sixers. As we sit here now, the Heat has a 2-0 lead. One of the sayings that I always have utilized from my years of covering the NBA playoffs and other sports is that the playoffs don't really start until somebody loses at home. So this is kind of like tennis. Miami Heat is held serve. They won their 2 games at home. Now it's back to Philly. The Heat is on, so to speak, on Philly to really win at home. So the whole serve, if I can mix metaphors for 2 sports. But what do you think the Sixers' prospects are? Because they've got some uncertainty with Joel Embiid and his injury, but they've really got to win at home, and it's got to start with this first game in Game 3.
I think Philly's going to lose the series because you know how you talk about, a series doesn't start until you have to win. You have to win at home. Well, I believe another thing is a series doesn't start until there's pressure on a team to win, and Philly's under a lot of pressure. And again, without Joel Embiid, I think by the time he comes back, it's going to be too late. So I just have Miami because I just don't think they have enough. They have a lot of young players, and again, James Harden, he's not what he used to be until he really tries to come back to Houston. James Harden, it's not going to happen, and that just has come out of him yet. But the way that Miami's playing offensively and defensively, they're being extremely physical with that entire team. Yeah, they're going to outbeat them. And again, as I mentioned, Doc Rivers is going to get a lot of criticism, again, which he has been even since the last series too against Toronto, which, again, it's not just on him. And I think that's the part that really gets me too. But again, like I said, injuries happen. But if Joel Embiid can't even read his phone, he has trouble seeing that. Even with a mask on, he's not going to, I don't think it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. No, there's no question. It's tough to overcome losing your best player. But I really, just really wonder about, who steps up into a leadership role when your top player is out. I don't know if you're watching some of the series that focus on the Lakers, Showtime, Winning Time. And there's also the one that the Magic himself did. And it talks about the series when he was a rookie, when Kareem was injured in the finals, and he stepped up, played center, had one of the greatest games of NBA playoff history. What's wrong with James Harden?
That's not happening again. You have Tobias Harris also, who, I'm not gonna lie, he had a first good 2 games. He scored also. You have Maxey also. You have some young players that can score. But no, you're talking about to dominate like Magic did, playing center.
Why can't Harden step up? Why is it? I mean, I'm really concerned that he's not stepping up and trying to fill the void. Not that he would play center, because Joel is a special, unique. But he's just not dominating. He's not taking over the game.
He's not taking over the game. Like I said, in order for them to even try to have a chance, he would have to go back to Houston, James Harden. Mm-hmm. And by him doing that, when teams start to pressure on him, that would be able to open up for other guys too. Mm-hmm. No, he hasn't done that. And again, I personally do not think that he is washed up. There's this whole thing around he's washed up. I don't think that's the case, but I'm not sure. He's in shape. By now, he should be in shape. Even when he supposedly wasn't, he gained weight, he still was able to, score 24, 25 points. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that is not there. So that's the problem. So in terms of him stepping up like that's the only way to give them a chance. But for them to be down 2-0, I think Miami takes this series.
Okay. All right. So let's go out west to the Suns Mavs. I mean, this seems like a series that you can just slot the Mavs in for the Western Conference. I'm sorry, not the Mavs, the Suns. The Suns in for the Western Conference Finals. The Suns just seem to be too solid right now. Their best player is playing well. They seem to be operating on all cylinders. They may not necessarily play super exciting basketball, but they're just winning. So I think that they're going to easily move in, maybe 5 games into the Western Conference Finals. What do you think?
You can't take out Dallas just yet. The reason why, because Jason Kidd's strategy, and again, this Phoenix team is different from the Jazz, but the small ball is what's going to keep them in the game even against them. The only thing is Phoenix has athletic centers that can go out to contest shots at the wing, as opposed to Utah with Rudy Gobert. He can't go out, but I think it's going to keep them in the game. But no, Phoenix is still going to win the series. Now, I believe Dallas, like I said, Dallas can get one at least. But no, Phoenix definitely is going to take the series.
To me, right now, the best matchup in the playoffs is not just Celtics Bucks because it's 1-1, but I love how Grant Williams, a third-year player out of Tennessee, 22nd pick overall, stepped up defensively and is really giving Giannis a run for his money. He's 4 inches shorter, but he has built a brick wall around the basket and is at least making Giannis work for things that normally come easy for him. That's one reason that this series is tied 1-1. Obviously, the Bucks still have the advantage. It was great for them to win one in Boston. But did you know anything about Grant Williams and how you think this series is going to play out?
Oh, I've heard his name many times for the past, 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about him. I think, though, this is the most I've ever paid close attention to him playing. Mm-hmm. I know he can play good defense, and first of all, he has to step up to do that because Marcus Smart is out Defensive Player of the Year, so that's for one. But again, they're being physical with him just like they were being physical with Kevin Durant in the first series. The only difference between Kevin Durant and Giannis is bigger and stronger, so he can take more of a physical beating, and that is why I think still, and again, with Chris Middleton being out, that puts them at a severe disadvantage, a big disadvantage. It does, because again, your best shooter and ideally your closer is not there, because like I told you the last show, it's going to come down probably one game to a last minute, a game winner to at least win the series. And somebody's going, Giannis, whoever, is going to miss that shot, and it's going to end up going to a game 7. But I still have the Bucks winning it.
Okay, I agree with you. This is going to be a 6 or 7 game series because I can easily see Boston stealing one in Milwaukee. So, this series will be tied at 2-2. And, I love it when a series is tied at 2-2 because that's when you got to hike up your shorts and tighten them up a little bit and come play ball. So I think this is going to could shape up to be the best series in this round because I just think that both of these teams are hungry. They're talented. They're evenly matched. They're relatively healthy. And they both just really see an opportunity. One for the Bucks trying to defend. They want to get back to the finals. And this young Celtic team with its new young coach just trying to get there. So this is a great series, both from a basketball standpoint and just who's got it right here standpoint. So we're going to watch this one, probably have something to talk about next week as well. And so finally, it's like the Flash series. Memphis and Golden State is the matchup everybody wanted to see. It certainly has lived up to the hype. First game, the Grizzlies lose when Ja was not able to convert a last-second shot, but you got this matchup with Ja Morant and Steph Curry. That's what everybody wants to see. I think the Warriors are almost looking at a baby version of themselves. A team that's young, that moves, that really defies a lot of the norms for playing style, just like the Warriors did in their heyday. So this is a great series. I'd love to see it go 6 or 7 games. I don't know how to call it because young teams, you give them a little bit, you let them get a little bit close. They want to take the champion out. And while certainly the Warriors haven't been champion in a while, they're one of those teams that if you're a young team and you're trying to get there, you want to go through a team like Golden State. What is your take on this series?
So you mentioned that Memphis seems to be a young version of the Warriors. The only problem with that is they can shoot, but they're not as good of a shooting team. You're not going to outshoot the Warriors. You're not going to beat them like that. And that's why they lost that first game too. Draymond goes out. He gets kicked out the game and I disagree with that. Man grabbed his jersey. Look, you're going, you can get caught under there. He clearly held on to him, so he didn't hit the floor to look like he didn't do it intentionally. Okay, so you take him out the game. Again, disagree with that. But if that's the case, how do you still get out-rebounded for one, and you're trying to shoot? You're not going to outshoot Golden State, and you have one of the 2 best shooters in NBA history. There's no way that you're going to win by that. So that's why they lost game 1. Now, when they won the second game, and again, Ja was sensational, 47 points. They weren't making as many shots that time too. And again, another player gets ejected for, people are going to debate whether that should have been a flagrant 2 or whatever. Again, he clocked back, swatted the man in the head. He didn't mean to do it. But again, in today's NBA, back in the 80s, when you covered it, yeah, that would have
been play on. Back in the 80s, that would have been play on.
Foul.
No blood, no foul.
The rules are different. So again, if he had just jumped up, arm went up, going to review it because he hits the floor hard. Probably worse, may have been flagrant 1. But anyway, okay, he's out. They managed to win game 2. They just have to keep doing 2 things. They have to keep, one, getting to the basket for one. They need to stay inside, and they have to be able to rebound, but don't try to shoot your way out because you're just not going to win. You're
not going to win that game.
No. So again, that's the only way they're going to have a chance to possibly go to a game 6 or 7, because I see it. I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to go to 7 games. It's either going to go to 6 or 7.
Okay. All right. So we got some exciting second round series, at least a couple to watch and probably still be talking about next week. But before we leave, your Lakers, man, they're always in the news, and now there's suggestions that maybe the Lakers should trade LeBron, maybe they should trade Anthony Davis. I mean, what is going on? Do you think that these are moves that the Lakers should consider? Are, it's almost like don't go into the grocery store hungry. They're so desperate, they're so hungry that they might do something that ultimately hurts them in the long run. So do you think that they should trade LeBron?
No, I don't think they should trade LeBron. And I could understand, and I don't think they should trade Anthony Davis either. However, I can understand, because that talk has been going on probably since the middle of the year, for like the last, I think, 5 months before the season had ended. So I understand you saying that, because at the end of the day, if Anthony Davis is healthy, you're not telling me they're missing the playoffs. No matter who is on the roster, you're not telling me with a healthy Anthony Davis, you're going to miss the playoffs. But LeBron really is the only thing they have going for themselves. Other than that, at least for right now, they don't have anything. Now, do I think Russell's going to resurrect himself next year? Yes, but that also going to depend on who they get as a coach. That is why, yes, they need to get Mark Jackson. There are other coaches that they're interested in, and there's this whole rumor about trying to get Phil Jackson to come back. I don't know about that. But I think
Phil, I just stay right there by the pool or wherever he is. Don't even want to deal with this because it's a rebuilding project, and you don't bring in a Phil Jackson for a rebuilding project. Not totally, because obviously you have to.
It's not a total rebuild.
But you need more than what they got.
No, but they're gonna let a lot of players. I mean, they have Malik Monk. They still have young players that they're going to hold on to. What you need to do with them is just have them coach. But again, to still have LeBron, Russ, because he's going to be there too, and AD. And again, I see AD getting hurt again. I don't know how many games he would miss next year, but it's going to continue to happen. But if you have a coach like Mark Jackson, who has proven to coach young players, because again, we all know what he did with Steph and Clay to develop that team before he got fired and it got taken over. It got taken over by Steve Kerr. He inherited that, and then yes, they won the championship. Okay, fine. But yeah, he can do that, and then he can set up a system for Russ. Whereas, stop taking threes. You need to get to the basket. If you cannot get all the way to the basket, you stop and you shoot the mid-ranger. But he's going to be able to set a system up for them too. So I think, yeah, if you do that and you keep on to those, because again, we all know LeBron, it's been proven. LeBron can have glimpses from the fountain of youth. That is not going to be enough. It's not on him anymore. Those days are over. He's turning 38 next year.
It'll be interesting to watch with the Lakers. And when you talk about Russell Westbrook, it's hard to teach an old dog to change his tricks. So Russell is who he is. He's going to be who he's going to be. Somebody's going to have an intriguing opportunity and challenge when they come in to coach that team. But I agree with you. Trading LeBron would just be a desperate move. It depends on what you get, but I don't think you put that, keep it out there on the table too long.
To replace him. You're not going to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, man, that was great. We got the NFL wrapped up. We gave our kudos to our black coaches of all time. We got great snapshot into the playoffs, which continue with some great series. A lot of things going on in and around sports. I always love mixing it up with you. Love hearing your opinions. Love your passion. Love your knowledge. You know more than me right now, but that's all right. You know, I'm loving passing the baton. So thanks for everybody for watching, and until next time. Keep what, Edwin? Keep
balling.
All right now. See you next time.
See you.